So I think all of you are able to see my slides. Yes? Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So here, I think in the previous classes we started IoT physical servers and cloud offerings, and we have taken these outline of the chapters. And later, I think till the this one development with Django we had taken in the previous session. I think we had completed these sessions, right? All this we had completed in the previous class only. How we'll be executing in Xavli Cloud, and how does we work in Django protocol, what do you mean by the Django, how to create the project, everything we had taken in the previous session itself, right? How do you configure the database also we had taken, right? And I think these are the settings, right? And how do you define the model? I think till here we had taken the previous class, right? Yes, anyone? Defining a model and example of Django model. I think we had taken this one also, right? And later we had taken about the admin site. I think till here we had completed, right? Is it true? Anyone? Till here we had taken here,
Yes.
which is nothing but the Django admin site here, and how it is been formed, everything we had taken in the previous session here. Today we'll go for the next slide here, defining the view, right? So how do you define a view for the Django protocol? Today we'll try to discuss here, right? The view is nothing but it has the logic here where it will try to combine, right? It will try to combine the model and template here. So that is nothing but the glues, right? The view is nothing but it is a logic here where it will glue the model to the template here, and it determines the data to be displayed, right? Whatever the data you want to display it here in the template, that will be determined by the view itself here. So it determines the data to be displayed in the template here, and retrieve the data, right? Retrieve the data from the databases here, and passes that data to the template here. So between the model and template you'll be having the view, and the view will decide, right? The view will decide here what type of template and what type of retrieving data is to be created here. So that one will be created by that will be created by the view itself here. And it also extracts, right? The other functionality of the view is nothing but it also extracts the data that is posted in a form of template here, and it inserts it in the database here. So the view will also extract the data here and paste it on or post it onto the template here, and insert it in the database here. So each page, whenever you design the website here, each page in the website here, it will be having a separate view here, which is basically a Python function in the view.py file here. So each page in the website will be having a separate view, which is basically a Python function in the view.py file here. Not only this functionality, it also performs other functionality like authentication, sending mails, and so on here. So this is the functionality of the view here, right? So it will extract the data here and post it onto the template, and it also inserts it in the database here. So you'll be having each page will be having a separate view here, which is the basically in the Python function in the view.py file itself here. So it not only performs, it also performs the additional tasks such as authentication, sending the mails, etc. Right? So this is about the Django view here. Let us take one example for that one here. Which example will be taking? We'll take in the example of an weather station app. So let us take the Django view. How does it represent? We'll try to see it here. So we'll take an weather station app here. So this view, right? This weather station app, it corresponds to what? It corresponds to the website here, right? It corresponds to the web page, not website, web page here. So where it displays the latest entry given in the temperature data here. So in temperature data object here, whatever the data is been there, so that will be viewed the latest entry in the temperature data table here, that will be viewed in the web pages here, right? So I will just change it here for you all, right? In the web pages here, not site, web pages, right? In the web pages here. So here in that web pages, the data will be displayed. That is the latest entry. That is the latest entry in the temperature data table. It will be displayed here. So in this view, right, in this view you can see in this view here, right, in this model what I have taken here. In this view you can see the Dango built-in object oriented, right. This is the object oriented, right, object oriented relational mapping here, right. So it is object relational mapping API here, where you can use this one, right, where you can use this object relational API mapping API here, so that we can retrieve the data, right. We can retrieve the data from where? From the temperature data table here. So we are having what? We are having this object relational API here. So this object relational API, what will do is, it will help the developers, right? It will help the developers here so that they can write the code, right? They can write the code here and interact with the database. Interact with the database here without worrying the type of database engine you are using here. So without worrying that one, you can directly write this code here and try to get the data from the databases here. And we can use the same code, right? The same code can be used here in different back-end databases here. So for different back-end database also, you can use the same type of code itself here. So here this code, right, where it will be library library functions. So where in that one we'll be having the Python library functions used for the database backend here, and which can be used, right, which can be used to write the specific code. You know, it is used to write the specific code for the database itself here. So for that one you can choose it, this type of examples here, right. So here you can see in this also figure, right, you're having what this one, right, temperature data dot objects dot order underscore by, right. So this function, right, this function which is given here in this table here, it will return, right, it will return the latest entry in the table. For that one you're using this one, right, this functionality, where you can see it here, this figure. So this one is used, right, this one is used to get the latest entry from the table. For that one, we are using this function here. And if you want to retrieve all the entries here, then you can use table, right? You can use table dot objects. So I think this one is not written here, right? You can use, suppose if you want to have only this functionality, right, latest entry only, then you can use this object function here. But if you want to have all the functions, then you can use table dot objects dot all. So if you use that one, then what happens? You'll be getting all the entries, but this one will give you only the latest entry, right? And here, if you want to have the specific entries, like from here to here, what are the data I required here from the date specified for 1 day or 1 week, if you want to get that type of data here, then you can use it as what? Table dot objects dot, right, filter. So that filter, then you can use in the filter the queries here, right, filter out the queries here to match the specific conditions here. So if you want to get from the specific entries, then you can use it as tables dot objects dot entries filter here. If I use table dot objects dot all, then you will get all the entries here, right. So here if you want to retrieve the entries in the template, right, if you want to retrieve the entries in the template here, then you can use this function, right, rendered to response. So if we use this rendered to response function here, then you can render all the retrieved entries, whatever the entries here retrieved here, that one you can get it in the template here using this what, using render underscore to underscore response here. Using this function you can retrieve here. And here if you want to render a given template with the dictionary, right, if you want to get render a given template in the form of context dictionary, then you can return the HTTP response for that one here. So you can also give the HTTP response here, and using that HTTP response you can get the function here in the form of the template itself here, right. So this is the way how you can get the view, right, get the view of the Python functioning itself. Shall we go for the next slide? So this is one example here. Yes, are you all able to hear all of them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, let us go for the next one here is how to define a template. Template in the for the Django model here. So a Django template is usually an HTML file, right? It is usually an HTML file here. So where you can sort the text here like XML, email, CSS, JavaScript, and CSV. So all these files can be sorted here in an HTML file here. So a template is nothing but what? It is an HTML file here. So where you can sort the text files such as XML, email, and JavaScript, and so on in the HTML here. So what does the template will do here? The Django template, what it will do is it will give us the separation, right? It will give us the separation of the presentation of the data from the actual data. So that separation you can get it from the Django templates here. Like by placing the placeholders and the template tags, using that one you can get the difference. You can get the separation itself here. And the Django template, whatever is, it will receive, right? It will receive the context from the views here and presents that data, right? Presents the data in the context variables in the placeholders here. So it receives the context from the view and presents that context variables in the placeholders. So here we are using what? We are using the placeholders and associative tags itself here. So using this placeholders and tag, you can separate the data that is presented from the actual data here. So in order to that one, you require this variables, right? The context variables here. So you have to receive the context from the view and then place that data in the variables of the place. So this is the definition of the Java template here. So this is an example, right? For a weather station app here itself, this is the example here how we are using for the template here. So you can see this is an HTML head here. We're having the link, right, to get the responses itself and the sensor values here, and you are getting the type of controls used here, and from the Google Maps you'll be able to get the navigation value. So this is an example for Django template itself here, right? This is the example for Django template. So it is continued from here. It is the continuation here. So this is one complete example, right? Complete example for weather Django template for the weather station app itself here, right? So this is the continuation here, continuation of this figure. So where here you will be having this one is the home page, right? You'll be having the home page and not given. So once you write this code itself here, you'll be able to get the screen, temperature monitoring web application to be run here. This is a template. This is a template for the weather station app itself here, right? Let us go for the next function here, that is URL pattern here. How do you define the URL patterns here? So URL pattern is nothing but it is the way, it is a method, right? It is a method for mapping this URL to the views that should be handled, right? That should handle the URL request here. So for that one, this URL patterns is the used here, where this URL patterns are a way of mapping the URLs to the views, and that can be handled to the URL request here. So coming to the next point here is suppose whenever the URL is been requested, right? Whenever the URL is requested by the user here, and that has to be match the patterns here, then the view corresponds to that pattern here and matches that URL that is used to handle the request. So whenever you request that URL here, if that URL matches the patterns, then automatically that pattern will be sent to the request itself here. So this is the way the URL will be working here. So let us take the URL pattern. How do you get this URL pattern? Here you can see, right? So this is the URL pattern here, right? This is the URL defaults we are using. We are using importing from the admin the Django contributions here, and these are the patterns, right? So this is the pattern how you want to include the in the admin here. So once this URL pattern is been configured, right? So with the models, right? We are including with the models, right? Views, templates, and URL patterns. Once it is defined for the Django project here, the last step is what? The last step is you have to run the Django application here using these commands. So using these commands, you can run the Django application here. So once you run the Django application here, then automatically you have implemented this Django framework here, right? So what you have to do, you have to create the project, right? And sync the database here and run the application. So these three steps will be configured whenever you run this Django application here, right? So this is about the Django framework, and mapping, right? Mapping the databases to the Django framework here and running the application here. Now, let us go for the last portion of this chapter here, that is how do you design a RESTful web-based API here. So this RESTful web API here will be used, right? It will be used here to run, right? It uses the Django REST framework where we had discussed in the previous section here. So in that one REST framework only this RESTful web API will be working function here. So with using this Django framework which is already installed here, the next thing what you have to do is you have to run the Django REST framework here. How to install that one? We require these three commands here. Pip install Django REST framework, markdown and filter here. So once you execute these commands here, the next thing you have to do is you have to install what? After install, this is the way of installing the Django REST framework here. After you install it, then you have to do what? You have to create a new project here which is named as what? RESTful API here, and then start the new app, right? That is nothing but the my app here. How do you create this project here? By using these three commands here. So Django admin, start project RESTful API here, then run this one and then start the application that is known as the my app here. Understood all of them? Yes, understood. Shall we go further? So here
Yes,
in this,
ma'am.
this is about the RESTful based API. The next thing is how do we obtain that one? We'll try to take the examples here, right? In this examples, yeah. In this examples, I had given the programming here, the concepts here. So in order to design this RESTful based API, it is similar to that of the previous one. But here we'll be using what? First, this is the model, right? This is the Django model here, and this is the Django view, the code for the Django model, and this is the code for the Django view itself here, right? And next thing is we have to create the serializers here. So if you take this previous one, right, that is the Django model here, right? So here the you'll be having four fields here, right? In this you can see you're having four fields, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Four fields are there. What are the four fields here? For the weather station here, the first one is the name field, right? Station name, and second one is what? Time stamp here. Third one is the temperature, and this one is what? Longitude, latitude and longitude. Lat and long is the latitude and longitude here. So these are the fields, right? These are the fields for the station model itself here, right? And here if you see the next one, right, this view, this is the view for the weather station itself. If you see this one, what happens, we'll be having the REST APIs view, right? REST APIs view here. So where we'll be using the view sets, right? We'll be using this view sets here. So these view sets, right, it will be used for the view here so that we can combine the logic, right, and set the related views in one class itself here. So related views in one class only we can set it here using the view sets here. So you can see it here, right? Class station view set here. So where this class station view set is been used, right? It is been used so that we can combine the logic here of the related views in a single class. So the logic can be combined and you can place it in one single class here. This is the view set where you can see it here, right? And here by using this one you can set the get the Django view for REST API itself here. Now coming to the next one is we are having the serializers, right? The serializers for the REST API here. So what is the functionality of this serializer is it will allow the complex data, right? Whatever the complex data is there, that will be converted to the Python database here. So in order to data types, so in order to convert the complex data to the Python data types here, we'll be using this serializers. So serializers will be used what? For conversion of the complex data to the Python data types here. So where you can function this one, right? Where you can work these data here in the JSON or XML type and other content types here. So it will also function, right? It will also not only functions the serializers here, it will also perform deserialization also. So they will also perform the deserialization here. So where you can convert the Python data types to back to the complex data here. So that can also be done here. But before you perform that one, you have to change in this data itself here. right? So this is the functionality of the serializer here. The next one is what? The URL patterns, right? So this is nothing but the Django URL patterns here. So where this Django URL patterns is being used here, where you'll use this view sets, right? So you can see you can import the views here. You'll be using this view station view set here. So these view sets, they will are being used instead of using the views here. So in the previous pattern where we had discussed, where we use just views here, but here we'll be using what? View sets here. So using this view set here, what we can do is we can generate the URL configurations for the API, for the API which you have been used here. And in order to generate this URL configurations for the API here, what you have to do is you have to simply register the view set, right? Simply register the view set here, right? Register the view set, right, with the router class. So once you register to the router class here, then automatically you can use the view set instead of views here, right? And here when you use these routers, right, when you use these routers here, they automatically, what they will do is they will determine how these URLs for the application should be mapped here, and then they will try to manage, right, they will try to handle all the incoming requests here. So for that one, I will be using this view sets. You will be using view sets in Django URL patterns itself here, right? The next thing is what? Project settings here, right? This is the Django view for project settings, right? You can see it in this figure, right? You can see this project settings example settings.py here, right? So once this settings is being created, right, whatever the settings engine type you have used, password, and what is the framework you have used here, right, and whatever the installed apps here. So once this project settings is being done here, the last step you have to do here is what? This is for the project settings of what? The REST API Django project here. Once this project is being created here, right? So you have created all the station REST API source files here. The next step is what? You have to set up the database here and run the Django development web server here. How do you run that one? Using what? Using python manage.py syncdb and python manage.py run server. You can run the project itself here. Is it clear? Shall we go for the last one? Last slide itself. So till here I had taken, right, this is about the Django project settings here. This is the installed apps itself, right? And let us go for the last slide of today's session here. So these are nothing but the Python packages, right? These are the Python packages of interest. This one is in the previous chapter, right? This one is the previous chapter. There I had not taken, but I had included for today's session here. Just you can have what do you mean by this JSON here. JSON is nothing but it is an JavaScript object notation here, where you can read and write and interchange the data format here. For that one, you'll be using here. It is used an alternate to the XML here, right? You can use it an alternate for the XML here, and we are having we can build this JSON in two structures here. That is the collection of name, value, pairs here, and the ordered list of values. So Python list and Python dictionary. In these two structures, you can build it here. And XML is what? It is the data format here, where you can use it for the structured document interchange here. And the Python library, Minidom library, will provide this implementation of this data object model, right? And you can use an API to similar to that of the other languages. So you'll be having HTTP lib and URL lib2. These are the Python libraries for internet connectivity, right? SMTP for the mail you're using for handling the mails and routing the mails here. So that SMTP library will be provided in the Python here. So where you can create the module here and provide SMTP transitions, and where you can use it to send the emails here. And next one is NumPy, right? It is a package here where you can use it for computing in the Python itself here, and it supports for all the multidimensional arrays and matrices here. Scikit-learn, it is an open source machine learning library for the Python here, where you can implement all the machine learning algorithms, clustering, regression, dimension reduction problems to the Python itself here. So these are the packages, right? These are the packages for the Python itself here, right? And you can for further reading, right, for the all Python and for the cloud, everything, these websites you can go, right, and also go for the cloud itself. So all these packages you can go and try to learn it itself, right. Okay, so this is about the 8th chapter. So in the next classes, what we'll do is we'll go for the 9th chapter here, where we'll be implementing, right, implementation of the applications of the IoT will be there. So we'll be having the same repetitions, and we'll try to have the package implementations.